satanic rage. But perhaps the apparitions which afflicted Gemma most were those in which the unclean spirit took filthy and shameless forms in order to try and obscure the candor of her soul. It was because of one of these assaults that, as previously mentioned, she plunged, in the middle of winter, into a cistern of icy water. It was a famous bath, as she herself called it afterwards, which certainly would have caused her death if she had not been rescued by an invisible hand. And it was not only satanic jealousy of the rapid strides Gemma was making along the road to sanctity that was the cause of the persecutions she had to undergo. This hate was increased still more on account of her zeal for the salvation of souls. Since nothing ever made her desist from an apostolate in which, as we shall see, her particular mission consisted, the devil intensified his attacks. Jesus warned his servant, and she told Father Germanus about it thus: after communion 2 days ago, Jesus said, "My child, the demon is preparing to make violent war upon you." And these words he made me hear every moment in my heart. Pray. Who will be the victor, the devil or my soul? Oh, how this thought afflicts me. How will this war be decided? On this warning there followed a threat: war, war, upon your soul. These words resounded in her ears for several days. Father Germanus was also included in this threat, and shortly afterwards the first attack was made. Upon undertaking the direction of Gemma's soul, Father Germanus had commanded her to write down the history of her past life, on the pretext of knowing her sins better, but in reality to obtain an account of the marvels which God had secretly worked in her soul. To overcome her objections, this was to be called a general confession. Even here she experienced great repugnance, because she thought that Father Germanus would be scandalized on coming to know her sins, and would pay no more attention to her soul. But again obedience won the day. Gemma set to work and wrote about 100 pages, in which she artfully did her best to hide the abundant gifts which God had showered upon her, by the confession of sins with which she declared she had spoiled them. However, contrary to her wishes, she succeeded in writing an admirable autobiography. This humble but glorious confession excited the rage of the devil. As he had sought to prevent its being written, so he tried to put obstacles in the course of the work, appearing to her invisible form and saying, well done, right away. It is all my work. Where can you hide yourself now?" But Gemma continued and finished her task. But the devil would not give up the struggle and endeavored to get rid of the pages that were such a cause of confusion to him. The general confession, or we should say, the autobiography, was given, by Father Germanus's directions, to Aunt Cecilia, who then waited for a favorable opportunity of sending it to him. But one day the manuscript which she had put under lock and key disappeared and could not be found. The devil himself had taken it, as he made known to Gemma. She wrote to Father Germanus, "One night, I do not remember what night it was, I was sleeping peacefully when the devil came with a temptation somewhat bad. I fought for more than an hour or so. I prayed, made signs of the cross, etc. One invocation only to the Immaculate Conception freed me altogether, but he, being furious, wanted to have his revenge. He would have liked to strike me, but as this had been forbidden him since that time the Father Provincial chased him away, he could not do it. He cried out, 'War upon your father! Your manuscript is in my hands.' And he went away. To compel the restoration of the manuscript to its place, Father Germanus had recourse to exorcisms, and it was returned. But in what a state! All the pages were smoke-stained and singed, just as if they had been held at a fire. The writing, however, was still legible, and so Gemma had not to do it a second time. The manuscript, such as it came from the hands of the devil, is now preserved by the Postulator General of the Passionists, and is an eloquent monument of the powerless rage of the angel of darkness against the humility of the servant of God. In continuation of the letter quoted above, Gemma said, "An hour or so after I had been to confession, the devil said, 'As long as you are doing it for yourself, do what you like, but be sure and do nothing to help sin, or you will pay me dearly for it.' Father, tell me something. How will all this end? The devil is using every means at his disposal, and is thinking of others. And the evil one did indeed use every means in his power, but all his efforts were in vain. He tried to cause trouble between Monsignor Volpi and Father Germanus by letters which, if they were not actually written by him, must, from the poison they contained, have been written at his dictation or under his inspiration. To bring this credit on the servant of God, he took from a desk the letters Gemma had received from her director, letters she kept religiously and read and reread for her spiritual profit, and scattered them about on the floor, where they were found the next morning. Naturally Gemma was suspected, and she thereupon wrote immediately to Father Germanus, Father, Jesus is still exposed upon the altar. Run to him and ask him who it was that scattered my letters yours all over the floor. I am suspected, but it seems to me I did not do it. They all know about it because it was thought that there were thieves in the house and they were all called. Do you understand me, Father? All your letters were found thrown about the room. Jesus will explain everything to you. I have told my confessor, and he said it was the devil. Who knows what the devil will do next? Father. But if you think it right, let the household know. She had guessed the reason of these paltry stratagems of the angel of darkness. Yes, she wrote, the monster will redouble his efforts to deprive me of help, because he sees that this help is for me a great blessing. But if even this should happen, Jesus at any rate will come just as often to my heart. With this in view, the malign spirit first of all tried to shake her trust in her confessor, actually taking his appearance and sitting in his place in the confessional. On one occasion the servant of God recognized him when he spoke, his words being so different from those she was accustomed to hear from the pious Monsignor Volpi, and she fled away horrified. At another time his insinuations were so subtle that she was almost on the point of believing him, and Father Germanus attests that it took him a long time to restore her peace of mind. Against Father Germanus the devil's efforts were unceasing. Gemma was sometimes about to yield. She mentions this herself in a letter. I had indeed lost all my confidence in the Father. My enemy, the devil who is full of limitless deceit, was making me see so clearly that the Father wanted me to lose my soul that I had believed him well enough. But Jesus has enlightened me. The enemy does not neglect to visit me from time to time, she wrote with her accustomed candor to her director. He would like to take away again the peace of mind you gave me. But Jesus has helped me and he has not been able to do anything. It is enough that I make an act, or say a prayer, or that I begin to meditate, to make that ugly thing begin his attacks, saying, what does he care about you? He is neglecting his duty. He is a chatterbox. And would you know how many temptations he suggests about you? How he tries to make me believe that you are mad, that you are a soothsayer. At other times he makes these words resound in my ears, oh yes, trust yourself to him, to that fool of a charlatan. That has made you believe in him? What was the impression made on Father Germanus by these anything but desirable compliments? He certainly remembered the words spoken to Gemma by the devil, war upon thy father, and upon your souls, and her remark, it seems as if the beast is more furious with you than with me. And I can say, he added some years later in his biography of Gemma, that the devil knew well how to keep his word. We cannot resist quoting here several extracts from her correspondence. While letting us into her confidence with regard to the efforts of the devil to injure her soul, they also revealed the sufferings she endured during this trial. She wrote to her director, a new attack was made yesterday soon after I had been to confession. Listen, Father. The confessor said that he believed it was better to discontinue those small penances he had allowed me to practice for some time past. To tell the truth, I did not like doing this at all. But as the confessor had often told me that the thing that pleased Jesus most was obedience, and it seems that I am beginning to understand this a little, I assured him that I was content to do whatever he desired. If you knew how the confessor tires himself out trying to make me good, and in particular, obedient. But my head is made of wood, and my body, when there is question of obedience, how slothful it is. At any rate, when I arrived home after confession I took away everything and I was therefore very much at peace. However, it did not last long. As soon as I had a moment to myself, for it was the time of my prayer, I knelt down and began to say the rosary of the 5 wounds of Jesus. At the 4th wound I saw before me a figure like Jesus, freshly scourged all over, with his heart laid open and bleeding. I finished the rosary, and then I said in a loud voice, Blessed be Jesus and Mary. He did not answer me. I repeated it and he said, Blessed, blessed, but he did not pronounce the names of Jesus and Mary. I understood who it was, and made the sign of the cross. He continued, however, to stay with heart open and bleeding, and he began by saying, "Is it thus, my child, that you repay me? Look at me. See how much I have suffered for thee. And now you canst not give me the consolation of those penances. After all, they did not amount to much, and you canst very well continue them as before." "No, no," I replied, "I wish to obey. And if I do what you desire, I disobey." And so on this occasion also the astute enemy had to withdraw in confusion. For Jesus had come to her and had given her a sign by which she might know when the devil was near and speaking to her. One morning after Holy Communion, she herself wrote, "It seemed to me that Jesus warned me that when I saw anything, I should immediately say those words, that is, 'Blessed be Jesus and Mary.' If the words were repeated in return, it was from Jesus; if not, it was from the devil." Thus Jesus continued to comfort her. The only fear that troubled Gemma after these assaults and these apparitions was the fear of having offended Jesus. She complained of this to him. "I allow these things to happen," he answered, "in order that all may know that you are weak and can sin. And then they will know your misery, and you will learn to be humble, truly humble. With all your defects, it only requires a little thing to make you proud." "But, my Jesus," Gemma replied, "at least grant that I may not offend thee again." And Jesus then answered, "Do not follow your own will, and you will be always safe." The reader will pardon us if we linger a little longer on this subject of the diabolical assaults which were inflicted upon Gemma. She wrote to her confessor, "Monsignor, the devil has again attacked me. Listen. Yesterday Aunt told me to draw a bucket of water. I drew the water, and filled the jugs. I then took the bucket to put it back in its place, and on my way I had to pass an image of the heart of Jesus. On seeing that image my heart gave 3 or 4 violent jumps. I saluted Jesus with these words, 'O my Jesus, hasten to grant me the grace to be united forever with thee. Make me so much thine that we two can never be separated one from the other.' Shortly after I had pronounced these words I received such a heavy blow on my left shoulder that I fell to the ground, but nothing was broken. I do not understand what all this means, but it hurt me very much. There was another attack on the following day. This time there were actually 2. I was terrified. I was thinking of Jesus, but I was unable to call upon him by word of mouth. The Blessed Virgin had said to me just before, 'The attack is about to begin, and it will last until you have in your hands an image of Confrater Gabriel.' This was true. In her next letter to Monsignor Volpi, Gemma mentions another visitation. He said that when you decide to put me in a convent he will not let me go, and that on the evening before, he will tear me to pieces with pincers. Then he beat me a little. With the help of holy water, and the intercession of St. Paul of the Cross I finally got rid of him. I began to pray a little and I was in the middle of my meditation when he came again. I said to him then, 'Go away, filthy beast. Do you not see that instead of making me lose my soul you are helping me to save it?' He ran off quickly very far away. I continued my prayers, and so everything ended well. The following temptation was perhaps the worst that could afflict the soul of one who was so full of love for God. Here is her own description of it. At about 9:30, the devil left me for a while because I said very fervently, 'Welcome sufferings, welcome the cross.' Hardly had I said these words when he went away. I took the crucifix between my hands and became a little recollected. Jesus came to give me his cross. I took it and at that moment he gave me the marks in my hands and feet, with great pain. I wanted to get up and go down on my knees to make the holy hour, but just then that beast returned, this time in the form of a young man who whispered into my ear, 'What are you doing? You are indeed stupid to pray to a malefactor, one who desires to be revenged upon you. See what he has done to you, nailed you to a cross just the same as he is. See the harm he does to you. Trample upon him. Spit in his face, tell him to leave you alone, and that I am going to be your guide.' I kissed Jesus despite the devil and said, 'O my Jesus, I thank thee for all the graces you have given me, and I desire to love thee with all my heart.' And all the while he, the devil, was whispering in my ear, 'How can you love a malefactor condemned to death? A man you do not know? Look at me. I am a fine young man who does no one any harm. That person, however, makes you suffer always. I on the contrary would make you always happy. If you obey me I shall free you from all the pain in your hands and feet. If you pay attention to me I shall make you happy and bring you with me. Having said all these things to me, he left me, and I began to make the holy hour, and I made it well. Scarcely had I knelt down when Jesus came, and I conversed with him for a little while. I asked him where he had been. I was near you, he answered. Against these assaults of the enemy, which became more and more frequent, God gave Gemma one particular help among others in Saint Gabriel of the Sorrowful Virgin. After one of these attacks, she invoked him. He appeared to her and said, "If the temptation fills your heart with fear, and your soul is on the point of yielding to the enemy, have recourse to me, and then you can rest assured of victory." On other occasions he appeared to her, and placing his hand on her head, made her say 3 times, "From the snares of the devil, deliver us, O Lord." And thus she was freed from the temptation. Even in her ecstasies she was subjected to these diabolical attacks, and the bystanders were often moved to pity and terror as she struggled against the angel of darkness. Amen.